Symphony Number 95 in C minor, third movement by Franz Joseph Haydn. Let's take a careful look at the title of this composition to determine its genre, the significance of the number of the symphony, and the movement number. Basically, I want you to read the titles of compositions very systematically, because titles of this sort contain a great deal of useful information about the composition. This work is a symphony, so you should know that it is intended for concert use, that is performed by orchestra, and that it has 4 movements. In fact, people, you need to know this information about every one of the multi-movement instrumental genres that were presented to you at the beginning of this unit. Because although we are focusing on movement formats as they occur within classical symphonies by 3 composers, you are responsible for knowing these details about the other 3 types of instrumental genres as well: the concerto, the sonata, and the string quartet. So make sure that for each of them that you know their cultural context, whether they're for domestic or concert use, their instrumentation, as well as the number of movements that they have. This is a Symphony Number 95, so we know that it could not have been written by Mozart. In fact, of the 3 composers in this unit, it could belong only to Franz Joseph Haydn, the only composer in this unit who wrote anywhere near that number of symphonies. Haydn wrote 100 plus symphonies. This is Symphony Number 95 of them. This is the 3rd movement of his Symphony Number 95 in C minor, and it uses the typical movement format for the 3rd movement of a symphony or a string quartet. That is minuet and trio. Indeed, as I may have mentioned earlier, this is the standard movement format for the 3rd movement of a 4-movement instrumental composition. There are 2 details of this movement that tell us something important about this movement format in general and about its composer. So let's examine them. Let's begin by examining the listening outline for this composition. And if you take a look along the left-hand side of it, you will see that it has 3 sections to it: an A section, a B section, and what should properly be labeled as an A' section at the end. It's basically minuet, trio, and minuet. So we have the number of sections, 3 sections, and the types of sections, minuet and trio, that we would expect to find in this movement format. Now, I've already pointed out to you that this movement format is properly called minuet and trio, and that a very good reason for remembering to refer to it as such is that this is a stylized dance. This piece of music would not have been used for actual dancing, and in fact, people, it could not have been used for actual dancing. And you can see this easily by taking a look at the listening outline. Take a look at the content of the A section. You see there presented in the music the same plan that I presented to you earlier on when I told you about the minuet and trio. That is, an A idea that is repeated, and then a B and an A' idea which are also repeated, giving you as a result A, B, A', B, A' in the minuet section. So in terms of ideas and their procession, it's absolutely regular. But if you take a look at the description of these musical ideas given to the right of them, you will see that there is an unexpected pause in the A' section. Now, a pause within a composition is not a terribly significant thing, but imagine if this were to happen in the course of an actual social or ballroom dance. If the music suddenly stops or pauses, what do you think the dancers are going to do? they would have to do the very same thing. So obviously this is a stylized dance. It could not have been used for actual ballroom or social dancing. The trio section of this movement is essentially a cello solo with very light participation from the orchestra. This in and of itself is not terribly unusual or significant because sometimes composers will do this sort of thing in a section of this sort to effect a certain contrast. More important, though, is the character of this particular section of the movement. It has a decided folk-like quality to it. In fact, it sounds a little bit like a fiddler playing at a country dance. It's rather lackadaisical. It doesn't sound very much at all like the elegant, stately court dance the minuet is supposed to be. And, in fact, Haydn was one of those composers who enjoyed playing or messing with the character of the minuet. Surely everyone in the audience knew what a regular minuet for social dancing sounded like, and by altering its character thus, he played with the expectations of his audience. One can imagine them turning to each other and saying, "I've never danced to a minuet that sounded quite like this one here." And when we get to the symphonies of Beethoven, we will see that Haydn was not alone in poking fun at the minuet. As a matter of fact, Beethoven made the joke explicit.